Everybody, and welcome back to the Green Witch Homestead. So we are inside, we are moving out of garden season and into indoor stuff, and I am actually going to try an experiment this year, and that is growing fodder trays to feed to my rabbits and to my chickens. And we're going to just start small. This is an experiment, this is the first time for me, so we're going to start small, we're going to do it together, and we'll see how it goes, and then if it is a success and it works, and I'm going to ramp up production because feeding them this way is a lot healthier and a lot cheaper than grain throughout the winter. Since I free range them in the summer, it's not that big of an issue, but in the winter there's no grass or fresh greens for them to eat on, so hopefully this will be a great alternative. What we've done is we've got the grow shelf set up. As you can see, this is my grow shelf, and I've got these little shallow trays. And you can get fancier trays that have the mesh bottoms in them, but I've seen it done without them. I'm going to lay some nice thick paper towel in these. And then I got my mix, which is, I've mixed it myself. This is a combination of winter pea, winter wheat, and some parsnip seeds in there. What you're supposed to do is you take 1 cup of that seed mix and you put it into a mason jar, and then you fill it with water. This is going to be a 24-hour process at this point. So you fill this up with water, and every 6 hours or so, give it a good shake, drain the water, and put fresh water in. So the jars phase is day 1, because we're going to be going through this process bit by bit. So let's get started with day 1. First things first, we've got them soaking. Now, the reason that you do the soaking is to help the peas and the wheat to germinate properly. They're going to have to soak for a while. This also kind of ferments them a little bit, helps break up the shell. These are going to sit here in these jars for 24 hours, and every 6 hours I'm going to come give them a good shake, drain the water off, and put fresh water on. That's the end of day 1. So we are officially on day 2. And as you can see, the seeds have clearly swollen quite a bit. Looks like there's a lot more in the jar than there was yesterday. So you may have noticed that I started 2 jars. And the reason I did that is because there are 2 different how to do the next step for day 2. Both of them require draining these off. So we're going to go ahead and get these drained off, and we'll go on to the next step. The first method for step 2 is where you use your seeds, your moistened seeds, and you take some type of screen or filter that's going to allow airflow but not allow bugs to go in and out, and you're going to put that on the top just like this, and I use my ring to secure it in place just like that. And then you're going to take these and just kind of sit them at about a 45-degree angle so that any excess water can drain off, and you're just going to sit them like that on the shelf for another day. So the second method is just to go straight to the tray. So you dump your seeds out on your tray, and you want to make sure that you spread them out into as thin a single layer as possible. So you're spreading them out, getting as much coverage as you can. I have the paper towels down on this because you don't want to grow directly on the tray. You want some type of level between the tray and the seeds, and this gives a nice grip to soak up some of the extra water so that you're not going to drown your seeds. Once you have them spread out onto your trays, then what you're going to do for this first step is you're going to take another tray and you're going to set it right on top, just like that. So these are where the 2 methods differ. The first method has you keep them in the jar where they can stay humid and moist and germinate that way in the light. The second is where they germinate in the dark. So we're doing both methods to test them out here and see how that works. So now we've got our tray set and we've got our jar set, and we're just going to leave them again for another day. Because it takes more than 1 day to have a finished product, you have to remember that on day 2 begins day 1 for the next batch. We have our new batch started. We have day 2 first method and day 2 second method. And we'll see you back on day 3. We are now on day 3 of the fodder tray setup system. So if you remember, day 1 we filled the jars, day 2 we strained them out to let germination happen, and we did 2 different ways. This was the tray. Germination has started. See all those little white things that are happening? So it has begun here on the tray. It's also started here in the jar. it actually looks like it's better in the tray than in the jar. All I do on day 3 is remove the cover and keep it watered. So I've got my tray here, and I'm just gonna squirt some water over the tray. The nice thing about having the paper towel is you don't have to be direct with this. The paper towel is going to soak it and distribute that water across the whole tray. I am using a very, very diluted amount of hydroponics fertilizer or plant food. It's not necessary because you're only growing the first stage of the plant, so it's not going to need to feed too much before you're harvesting it for its use. However, I want the best bang for my buck, so I picked up some concentrate hydroponics plant food, and I am just using a small diluted amount of that on each tray. Now, if you're following the in the jar method, basically, as far as I can tell right now, it's just putting everything a day behind. For the jar, we're going to pour it into the tray and then cover it. For me, that's not going to cut it because now effectively those 2 trays were both started on the same day and 1 tray is now a day behind. So if going straight from the straining method on day 2 to the tray with a cover seems to be skipping a day in the process. As of right now, both seeds are at the same level, so we'll see as we continue on down through the week if there's a difference. So that's it. That's day 3 is pretty much over and done with. You're just checking for germination and then covering your trays. And from here on out, it's literally just making sure that you check them and keep them moist, keep them watered, and every day from here on you're just repeating the steps for the next batches that you start. So I will go ahead and we're going to film the next couple days and show the growth rate, see how quick it takes. The time of year that it is, it's a little bit colder. We are wood heat in our house, so it's a little chilly in my house. But we will keep track on it and I'll show you the growth and we'll see how many days it takes for it to get to about 3 or 4 inches tall. That's going to be where I harvest it and feed that tray to my animals. Alright, so as we enter into day 4, you can see we clearly have some growth started. It's mostly the wheat that is growing. I took the lids off the trays this morning so that they can get exposed to the light and they greened up real quick. This is the 2nd day tray and they've just started to break through the seeds on this one as well. Don't forget as well that you need to be starting a new jar every day. On to the next day. As mentioned earlier in the video, we are wood heat in our house and I was concerned that the temperature would be too cold and the growth rate would be slow. It did get cold enough outside that we did have to start using the wood stove, so my concerns kind of flip-flopped. I had to make an executive decision and add soil to these trays. You can do them that way, you don't have to. The reason I did is because with the wood heat, it's too dry in our house, so without having the soil, the trays are not holding onto the water very well, so it really slowed down the growth rate. So we are on to day 5 now, I believe. I have 5 trays total, and I've got soil on them now. So this is what the growth rate looks like on day 5. The first tray was the straight to tray. This is the jar method. They're very similar in growth rate. Still haven't seen much of a difference between the two. This is the tray I started on day 2. And then we have another tray started over here, and you can see they're just starting to poke through. And then this was the most recent tray that I started. It's still under cover. We are officially on day 6 of this project. As I said in the beginning, it's not growing as fast as I thought it would. I don't know if it's a combination of the temperature in the house or the issue we had with it getting too dry. So they are definitely growing. So this is the day 1 trays. This is the one that was started directly on the tray. This is the one that was done in the jar. It's a little bit better germination rate on the jar one, so I think that's what the difference is. The growth rate is about the same. This is the day 2 batch. This is the day 3 batch. There's the day 4 batch. Day 5 batch is under cover. Day 6's batch is in the jar soaking. So it's basically just a rinse and repeat. Every day you start a new jar and start a new tray until you're out of trays. Once you're out of trays, you wait until the first tray is ready to be harvested, and then you have a new tray and you start all over again. So it's pretty easy to follow. A few discoveries that I made along the way. Like I said, if you live in a dry house, you want to do some sort of soil in there to help keep the moisture up. You want to make sure that it's warm enough in your house that they're going to grow at the regular rate of speed. Now, the peas are much slower growing than the wheat. You want to make sure you're giving it enough time. These are all little things that we learned as we're going. But the system seems to be working, and it's extra food, and it was 10 times cheaper than buying a bag of pellet feed, and it's much healthier food for them. And for me, I'd say it's gonna be a successful situation, and I like it, and I hope you guys will give it a try. Super easy to do if you have chickens or rabbits, to grow them food in a fodder tray system like this. I hope you guys learned something today. Thanks for watching the video. Remember to give us a thumbs up if you liked what you saw, and remember guys, get your hands dirty.